Hey guys, LootWizard here, and it is the first hour of the new week. So this is going to be my weekly Soulforge video and talking about the event. We have Raid Boss this week, and it looks interesting. There's a new troop here that's out. We're gonna check that out as well. It's called Tryhorn. But as usual, let us go and start with the Soulforge and see what's in here. We're going to start with weapons, and then we'll go to troops, and then after that we can go to the shop, and then we can go to looking at the event. So let's start with weapons here. We have a couple of weapons for the, and I should say this as well, the kingdom for this week is Drifting Sands. So if you want to get some of those mythic troops or legendary troops that's in that kingdom, you can open those event keys this week to try to get that. So all the weapons here in the Soulforge that are new for this week is going to be weapons that belong to this kingdom, Drifting Sands. So this one does. This one I don't really recommend. Stone Staff I don't really recommend either, unless you're into collecting them all. But this weapon here is the one that's also going to be in the event shop for the raid boss, so I don't recommend buying it here. We can get it over there in that shop for gems. So scrolling down here, there are two weapons I think that you should consider getting this week in the Soulforge, and that is the Crystal Axe and the Doomed Axe. Both of these weapons are good. Doomed Axe is more universal, which what I mean by that is it can be used by any class. Whereas the Crystal Axe, even though it can be used by any class, it's best used by the monster class because it is one of those mana generating weapons that is based on troop types, this being monsters. So we do have a monster class, and that's why this weapon is going to work best when you are using that monster class. Doomed Axe, however, is more versatile, universal. It can be very powerful with pretty much any class in the game. What it does is it does damage to all enemies, and then if you upgrade it, and these are doomed weapons, so you cannot upgrade them with ingots. You do have to upgrade them with those special forge scrolls that you get during the Tower of Doom events. And you do have to use the yellow forge scrolls to upgrade this one. So it'll do damage to all enemies, +1 per tempering level, and then it will convert purple gems to Doom Skulls. So that's very important right there. It is a Doom Skull weapon, and Doom Skulls are more powerful than regular skulls, and this weapon is really powerful. If you don't have any of these doomed weapons that convert gems to Doom Skulls, now's the time to probably get one, because these weapons are fantastic. So, and don't underestimate the Crystal Axe weapon either, because it is still really good. There's some really good monster troops out there. The Arachnian Weaver is a monster. I think Megavore is a monster, and that's a really great mythic troop as well. And then there's some really good legendary monster troops as well. Behemoth comes to mind, and I think even the Maw is a monster troop. So don't underestimate the Crystal Axe weapon either. Alright, moving on here to the troops. Let's check out really quickly the Summoning Stones. For blue color, I would say that if you're going to try to get anything, Lord Ironbeard would be the one to get. It does triple damage to enemies that use red mana. And so this is good, even early game. And if you can unlock its traits, it's immune to Devour, Deathmark, Disease, Poison, all that stuff. And it's immune to Stun. It reduces damage from skulls by 50%. Has a relatively low mana cost for the amount of damage that it can do. So that's probably the troop I would go for in that blue section there. For this color, which is green, I can't really say that I recommend any of these. You got Tiri here, but you can get that during the quest line, so I wouldn't say to go for anything there. Nothing really here that I can say is something you should go for either. Let's take a look here. Yellow. Even though Paladin is good, you're going to get Paladin early on, just opening gold keys. For Purple Day, yeah, none of these troops really stand out to me. Finally, for Brown Day, I would say maybe Moira Cragheart might be something that you could go for, because it will convert green gems to Doom Skulls, and it has only a 12 mana cost. Plus, it's immune to a lot of things. Does double skull damage to giants, and could be useful even in dungeons. So if you're doing daily dungeons and you don't have a lot of powerful troops yet, these boss troops will do extra damage to that boss in the dungeons. So that's a troop that might be something you want to go for. So moving on here, let's look quickly at the legendaries. Legendary troops, I would say, I never really recommend crafting any legendaries here in the Soulforge, but if you really wanted to this week, I can only recommend Keelan and then Behemoth. Keelan is probably number 1 out of these 4 legendary troops, Behemoth number 2. And because Keelan is used in some really powerful combinations of, especially this one with Divine Ishbala. Those 2 troops together are really powerful. Moving on here to Mythix, we have Famine, Yasmin's Chosen, and Phoenicia in Shade of Zorn. So I would say coming in, it's tough. As much as I love Phoenicia, this troop can do an incredible amount of damage, but the trick with it is that you need to have a Firestorm going when you cast it. It says it does 19 damage to all enemies boosted by red gems, burning enemies. If there is a Firestorm, deal double damage. I have got the damage up with this troop somewhere between 60, 70 or so damage to all enemies. So it is a powerful troop, but you need to be able to have a Firestorm active when you cast it. So if you do end up crafting this one, keep that in mind. And I do have some recommended teams for this Mythic troop on my channel, because I've used it a lot in the past. One of my favorites, but it does have that unique Firestorm requirement here to maximize its damage. So I'm actually going to say that Yasmin's Chosen is probably number 1 here to craft this week, just because it's more, it doesn't have so many restrictions to maximize its damage. So what Yasmin's Chosen does here is it will do scatter damage boosted by entangled enemies, and the boost is pretty decent. It's a 10. So you're going to maximize that out at 40, because if you have all 4 enemies entangled, it means that you do an extra 40 scatter damage. So, but always remember that when the boost ratio is something like this, that boost ratio is not based on your magic. So even if you're a lower level player and your magic isn't as high as mine at 49, you could still potentially max out the boost ratio of 40, even though you don't have a lot of magic yet. But it also generates mana that it uses, so that's always a plus for me. So we'll create 10 green gems while it's doing that scatter damage, and then if you unlock its final trait, it will entangle a random enemy when matching green gems. So if you have a way to generate a lot of green mana in another troop besides this one, you can just keep cycling it through this troop, and this troop will create more green mana and onward. So this one's probably the number 1 recommendation, but as a close second, I'll have to say Phoenicia is definitely worth crafting at some point. I do think that there are better Mythics out there, like Obsidius and Furnace, Tina 9000. All those types of Mythics come to mind immediately as being way better than Phoenicia. But, yeah. So, Shade of Zorn comes in at the very, very last place. It's a horrible mythic. It does have a summon, and it deals damage to an enemy boosted by red allies and skulls. And if the enemy dies, summon 2 Fists of Zorn. It's just really bad. I've tried to get a good team with Shade of Zorn, and I just can't make one work. Famine is okay, but it drains mana from all enemies and then deals damage to an enemy boosted by mana drained. So it can be a really annoying mythic to go up against if it's powered up fast enough because of the mana drain. But yeah, I don't think that it's better than Yasemin's Chosen or Phoenicia. So those are my recommendations for troops, and of course those are my opinions. If you have those troops and you have great teams with them, I'm not all-knowing. I don't know every team combination in this game because there's a lot of troops. But just from my experience of using, I do own Famine, Yasemin's Chosen, Phoenicia, and Shade of Zorn. I do own all those mythics, so I have tried to use them in several different teams, and from my experience, that's the order that I would place them in. So, alright, well, we got through that. Let's go and let me collect my tribute really quick here. And let's go to the shop and check out the new troop, Tryhorn. Let's see what it does. It deals 14 damage to the first enemy and knock them to the back. Repeat 2 more times. That seems weird. Repeat 2 more times. I wonder if that means it's going to knock the first enemy to the back two more times. That's almost like just jumbling the enemy team. But will it actually do the damage as well 2 more times? Maybe. We'll have to test that out. So it does it deals double skull damage to stunned enemies. That's interesting. Reduces damage from skulls by 20%. It's immune to all status effects, devouring, and mana burn. And it's a monster troop. Alright, I'm just going to go ahead and buy it all the way up to Mythic here. And let me get my Spoils of War for those event keys. Okay, now let me before we go to the event, the raid boss event, let me go in here and just show you. So event keys is where you're going to be getting, if you want to get some of the mythic and legendary troops for the Drifting Sands Kingdom. This is where you have the best chance this week of getting them, is in the event keys. You got a 0.11% chance to get mythics and 3.2% chance to get legendaries from this kingdom in these event keys. And if you go to your troops, and if you select kingdoms and go down to Drifting Sands and do show all, you're going to see all the troops. Now you can also do the base rarity there, and it'll show the mythics and legendaries first here, and then I'll go down to the commons. So let's see here. So we got 2 mythics for this kingdom. We have Scorpius, and we have Shabanu Vespera, and we have Saguaro. We have the Great Maw. Those are the 2 legendary troops for this kingdom, and then we go on to some of the other ones here. So there isn't a whole lot of other troops here that I'm going to say are really fantastic, but Scorpius is decent if you're going to, because it does lethal damage to the last 2 enemies if they're poisoned. And if you have a way to poison those last 2 enemies, and if they can be poisoned, if they're not immune to it, this troop is amazing. There is an Explore team with this troop in it that is really fast for level 12 Explore because it does lethal damage. It also, if you unlock all of its traits, it will give all brown allies 1 to all stats at the start of each turn. The only downside is that it has a really high mana cost at 28 for a mythic. Shabanu Vespera is a very interesting mythic. It will give 12 to a random skill on an ally, create 9 gems of their mana color, then repeat 2 more times for random allies. Now, the trick with this troop is that if you create a team that centers around one of these colors, so let's say if you have a weapon that's purple, and if you have 2 other troops that are purple, and then this troop, once you get this troop full, it's going to create so much mana that's purple that it'll keep all of your troops full every single time that you cast it. So it is a very interesting troop, but it does require a little bit of a restriction in mana colors to be really, really effective. As far as legendaries, I'm going to have to say the Great Maw is definitely better than Saguaro here. But the Great Maw, it will devour. It can only be cast once, but it will guarantee a devour as long as they're not immune to being devoured. High mana cost for a legendary, but it is still a good troop in certain teams. So, yeah, that's what you can get in event keys. Now, let's head over to the raid boss and check that out. So, we're going to be using troops from that kingdom, the Drifting Sands here. And so, we have the new weapon here for the mana generator for this kingdom. Drifting Sands is Stinging Wind, and it will create a mix of 6 yellow and brown gems for each Drifting Sands ally. And it takes 14 mana. It is red and blue. So I'm going to buy up to at least that point, because I always buy the weapons. You never know when they're going to be really great in the future or even now. So go ahead and do that. And so there we go. We got it. We may come back and buy a few more of these. I already do have the Godslayer troop, because I've already done this kingdom in a raid boss before, so I was able to buy the troop already. But we're probably going to come back and buy more of these just for the raid boss sigils once we get far enough up there. So first of all, yeah, let's go in here and let's start out with that weapon. Let's upgrade it first. And it is a mana generator, so let's go down here and select generator. And it was also red and blue. There it is, Stinging Wind. So let's go ahead and upgrade this. Let's look here what we have. Eliminate 4 armor from the first enemy, deal 5 damage to the first enemy, create a dust storm. So nothing really amazing here. Create a dust storm could be useful, but yeah, nothing crazy here on the upgrades. I always prefer something like Entangle or Silence, or even drain like 3 mana from the first enemy, things like that. Let's just go ahead and put that in there, and let's use the monster class, because Dervish here is considered the monster class, as you can see here, and it does gain a +5 to yellow weapons. Our weapon, though, is not yellow. Let me just see what I got listed here for my talents. And yeah, this isn't a bad class at all, because you got here in the traits 20% chance to dodge skull damage, and then it will give itself and all monster allies 2 to all skill points on 4 or 5 gem matches. So that's actually really good. And this 20%, there's actually a talent once you get down to level 70, which I haven't got there yet, but it gives you dodge, which is a 30% chance to dodge skull damage. So if you unlock level 70 and you select dodge, you're going to have a 50% chance to dodge skull damage, because this dodge and the trait here of agile should stack with each other, and you get 50% dodge. So now we need troops. clear out all my things there. We need to see what mana it's generating here first. It's going to generate yellow and brown, so those are the colors that we need. So let's select those. And of course, Scorpius is using that color. Vespera is as well, the Great Maw. So we got some interesting things here. And yeah, let's see. I really wanted to go by a fast. I mean, we could use a different weapon, but just for the sake of this, could put the Desert Troll in there, put that in there, and put Vespera in there and see how that works. It's going to be a little bit odd, but yeah, and for the banner, it will generate some brown, and we want maybe a little blue for that. So let's just start with that and see what happens. Desert Troll it'll double the amount of yellow on the board, which yellow can go for Scorpius or for Vespera. And then Scorpius is going to be our main damage, along with, well, our weapon here can damage as well. Of course, my team always usually changes for the raid boss way later on once battles get tougher, and I usually have a main weapon or a trickster's shot or something like that. So yeah, these battles are going to go by pretty slow here until I get way up there. So I think I'm actually going to end the video right here, and then I will show my recommended team for high-level raid bosses later, probably a day later, probably Tuesday. I'll do a video on that just to show you guys what team I'm using at that point. Just so you guys don't have to sit through like another, 30, 40 minutes of me just doing these slow battles until I get up to where it's more difficult. So, alright guys, thanks for listening and watching this video. As always, I appreciate the support. And if you did like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed, please consider doing so for more videos like this. And thanks as always. I'll see you guys in the next one. Later.